If we start to look at these things, what you need to do gets real simple and real crystal clear. And that's where you step into flow. You drown yourself in this process and you are reborn into a new man, and you give yourself permission to surrender and say, I'm not that man anymore, because you know who you really are? That picture you just held up, Ted, right? Before all the baggage, before all the pain, before the betrayal, before the divorce, before the bankruptcy, before the job loss, before all the stuff that we've been through, that's who we are. And this is a rediscovery process so we can step into that and find the freedom, the peace, and the joy that all of us are craving.
Let's impact some men today. I think we're going to do a great job.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Modern Man Podcast, where we are here to connect men in pursuit of their potential. I encourage you to join us as we embrace discomfort, cultivate community, and put wind in each other's sails. Now, before we jump into the episode, be sure to hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and share this episode with somebody else you know can get value from it as well. Also, to the men who are watching or listening, I encourage you to check out the Noble Knights Men's Group, where you can find the support and the accountability that you need to achieve your goals. Join us and become a part of a community of like-minded men on a mission to improve themselves and increase their capacity for life. And I'm excited to get some wind in our sails today from my guest, who is a renowned high-performance coach, speaker, and founder of Fierce Empathy Solutions, David Waldy, joining us out of Columbia, South Carolina. David, it's an honor, brother.
Ted, my man, dude, I've been so excited for this conversation, and man, I hope it blesses some people today, my man.
Oh, I hope so. I have no doubt that it will. And I like to make sure the audience and the guests get acquainted early in the episode. So the first question I always ask is kind of an icebreaker, and it's very simple. It's, how do you introduce yourself to a room of people who've never met you before?
It's a great question. So typically how I introduce myself is I'm the fierce empathy coach, and I infuse empathy into everything that I do, but I'm going to make you very uncomfortable in the process. I'm the guy who asks the questions that no one else has the balls to ask, and I'm willing to do so in a way that makes you feel seen, heard, understood, known, and loved. And so if you're serious about transformation and change, just know that I'll create an environment where you feel safe, but nothing's off limits.
Yeah, yeah. I love that. Why don't people usually ask those questions?
I mean, really, it comes down to ego, and we have a lot of fear of how we're perceived. Many of us are people pleasers, us guys especially. Many of us grew up with this performance-based mindset: is that we have to look the part, we've got to wear the mask, we've got to, you know, we have to fit into this mold of what society says, and we don't want to cause friction in relationships. I mean, our status quo is comfort. Like, we want to feel comfortable, we want to be accepted, we don't want to be rejected. But there's this powerful freedom that comes from bringing yourself to a place where you've got nothing to prove and nothing to hide. And you're not there to correct people. You're not there to be their savior. You're not there to change people. You just are simply operating as a guide. And for those that are curious and those that want to go deeper, that's where the questions are most powerful, because if we avoid the challenging questions, we're just coddling each other. And especially as men, like, we don't want that. The people we respect the most are the ones that look us eye to eye and say, brother, I'm no better than you. And I've dealt with this too. And I've been through the darkness, but I'm going to tell you everything you don't want to hear, but you desperately need to hear right now.
Oh my gosh. And that's scary for some to sit in, and it could be so freeing. And oftentimes it's the person who's gone through the storm themselves,
Yeah.
or who's gone through the journey themselves, that has really been able to put their hand back and pull someone else through.
Yeah.
And while doing my research on you and doing my little dive and my dig, you have a before and after on your website of who you were and who you became.
Yeah.
And a lot of us are in a process of, perhaps the listener right now is in that who they were moment. And I say who they were in past tense on purpose, or they're working on who they're becoming. And I
Okay.
say that in present tense because we're always becoming something.
Yeah.
Who was David before the David that we see today?
So the David that I buried a long time ago, he was a man who just wanted to be loved. He wanted to be liked. He wanted to feel safe. He grew up in a very volatile environment, and I'm using third person. I guess I'll transition to first person here. But my story, I know kind of where you're going with this, is that I built this stereotypical American dream from the ground up, and I achieved and accomplished everything everyone ever said I was supposed to do to feel happy. And I found myself in the bathroom on a Sunday afternoon with a Glock in my hand, and I was done. I was having constant suicidal ideation, panic attacks. I was about 60 pounds heavier than I am right now. I felt like my marriage was falling apart. I felt like I was failing as a new dad. And it was a divine wake up call where I'm grateful that God intervened in that moment. But that came on the back end of years of me trying to understand what it meant to be a man. Because when I was 14 years old, my dad walked out and I felt abandoned. And the man who stepped into my life was a youth pastor of mine, and I looked to him as a father figure. And uh, he sexually abused me for 2 years. And so my construct of what manhood was and masculinity as a teenage boy was okay, men either run or they take advantage. And so I had about a 10 to 15-year period of what I call my dark ages, where I made a lot of poor choices. I still loved God. I grew up in a Christian family, but I'm sure anyone here that grew up in a Christian family, that's a very loaded phrase. It means a lot of different
Huh?
things to a lot of different people. And I um, I just went into life being everything that I could to be accepted and approved. So I every sport you can imagine, I was in every club and chorus and drama, and I was on the worship team, and I played, all the musical instrument. I was just involved. I just stayed busy, and so I graduated, top of my class. I had a full ride academic scholarship, and I said, you know what, I don't want this, and so I ran. And I moved from Tampa, Florida, here to Columbia, South Carolina, and I was desperately chasing what I hoped to be a model of manhood from a gentleman named Darren Heilman. I got on the phone with him, and it was the first time that I had a conversation with a man, and I there was a glimmer of hope, and I believed maybe this man won't abandon me or take advantage of me. And when I looked at his life, there was something very similar to what many of us find in Jesus. I was like, I will follow this man. I want to learn from this man. So I moved here. I did a 2 year internship program, and thought I was going into ministry, Ted. Thought I was going to become a pastor. Very quickly realized I did not want to go into full time ministry. God bless those of you that are. And I threw myself to the marketplace, man. I started building my career, and I became a top 1% sales producer in a $400 million a year company. I got the glass corner office, the company car, the six-figure salary, the whole nine yards. Um, and again, it led me to just this performance based mode of living that caused me to finally come to a point where I just wanted to end it all. I was just done because I wasn't happy. I wasn't fulfilled. I hated the man in the mirror. I didn't know who I was. I didn't know what I wanted. All I knew is I wanted the pain to end. And I felt like the world would be a much better place if I wasn't in it. And so that that led to a series of events, which I'm sure we'll get into. But that's who David Waldy was.
Yeah. I appreciate you sharing that with me, man, and thank you for that. And I'm glad you're still here, bro. I just want to make sure I say that. I mean, shoot, we were on the call for like 5 seconds, and you improved my business. So you have a ripple of improvement around you. So thank you for being on the call today, and just thank you for being here. Um, Before we get into to who you became, I'm curious as to, and perhaps that was through the process of who you became. What was the third option? You mentioned your example
Mhm.
growing up was with men and run or take advantage.
Yeah.
And for anyone listening who might have a similar experience, or maybe they feel as though they fall into one of those buckets. Man, all I do is take advantage, or all I do is run. Um, what's the third option, man?
The third option is very uncomfortable, Ted. And I think you know. The third option is where you choose to look yourself in the mirror and get brutally honest about the things in your life that are out of alignment with the man you said you were going to be. Because all of us, when we were young, we had this ideal of what it meant to be a man. And that might look slightly different to different people, but it came from magazines and comic books or TV shows, movies. We all had this idea of what it meant to be a man. But then you start growing up and you realize there's a whole lot of different philosophies, there's a whole lot of different approaches, there's a whole lot of definitions of what manhood is and what's masculine and what's not. And so what I discovered was through this process, I had to get brutally honest with myself about the things in my life that were out of alignment. And what I mean by that is there's an exercise that I oftentimes will take clients through where you list out on a left hand side of a page every single thing in your life you're dissatisfied with, in your health, in your wealth, and in your relationships. Those are the three big buckets of life. Everything in your nutrition to how you feel about your love handles or the beer gut, everything you feel about your marriage, everything you feel about your boss or your coworkers, your team, everything you feel about your financial situation, every single thing. I tell people like this is your opportunity to be as petty as you want to be. Because most often, like us guys don't get a chance to be petty, do we? Right?
Nope.
We make it, but society doesn't let that fly very much. So this is your chance to be as petty as you want to be. Everything you're dissatisfied with, and so I have either on a sheet of paper or the left hand side, I have them listed out, and sometimes it can take a while. It's usually I give them an exercise for about a week, and they take the time to go through that, and and then when you come back to the table, I ask this question. I say, "Who do you want to become?" And that question is the question that was posed to me by my first coach that I ever had. We were sitting at this Mediterranean restaurant eating shawarma and a bunch of food I can't pronounce, but it was delicious. It was one of those main street cafes, with the big giant windows, and you can hear the sounds, the street traffic, and just beautiful experience. I'm sitting across the table, and um, my coach looks at me and says, "David, what do you want to do with your life?" There's a lot of things I want to do. I want to be an author and a TEDx speaker, and I want to do this, and I want to accomplish that. I want to win an Academy Award, and I'm listing like all the things, right?
Yeah.
Just all the things. And and then the follow up question is that was like, that's awesome, but who do you want to become? And Ted, that question, I don't know what it did, but it dislodged something in me because I didn't have an answer. And the words that came out of my mouth, I said, I don't I'm not allowed to define that because I had so much religious conditioning that I grew up believing that my number one job was to find God's calling for my life. I was supposed to figure out what he was calling me to do. And so I spent 20 years desperately weeping and praying and crying and begging God to tell me what my purpose was, what I'm here to do, what my calling is. And so when she asked that question, she said, "Who do you want to become?" I said, "I'm not allowed to define that." And she said, "Well, pick someone. Who's a model? Who's someone that you would want to model, that you'd want to be like?" And I said, "Well, Jesus." She said, "You cop out. Can't use that answer." She said, "That's a good answer, but I want somebody who's that, modern day, if you can. Think of somebody." I said, "Well, to be honest, I'd really like to be like Tony Robbins, just with a few less F words. I definitely won't want to travel as much as he does, but there's no denying that that man has marked millions of people around the world." And so I take that question that came out of that conversation, Ted, and I present it to whoever if I'm just having a conversation, friend, client, whoever, and I say, "Who do you want to become?" And most often they're like, "I don't know. I don't know who I want to become. I don't know what my purpose is. I don't know what my calling is. I don't know. I don't want what I've got right now or what I've had in the past. I don't want to keep living that way. I don't want to run. I don't want to take advantage. I don't want to manipulate. I don't want to fly off the handle. I don't want to be emotionally dysregulated. I don't want to be disconnected. I don't want this stuff." And so that's why I have them first list out what's everything you're dissatisfied with. And what's interesting is that when you ask that question of yourself, and for everyone listening, if you ever ask that question, like, who do I want to become? It's very, very challenging to answer. And so the next step in the process is starting to identify what you want. And what's interesting, Ted, I'm sure you know this, is that most guys can't tell you what they want other than I want $1 million, I want more sex, I want, a Lambo, whatever, right? But they can give you a whole laundry list of the things that they don't want. And so this exercise, the purpose is to list out everything you're dissatisfied with. And then on the right hand side of the page or another page, you do one of two things. You either write the exact opposite, or what you do is you look at it and you say, okay, if it's not the exact opposite, what is it that I want differently? If I don't want to have, you know, a beer gut anymore, well, the opposite of that is what? Well, no beer gut, right? Okay. So very simple, right? It can be that simple. Or it's like, I don't want to be broke anymore. I want to, I want financial security. It's like, I don't want to fight with my wife anymore. I want peace at home. I don't want to
Yeah.
snap at my kids. I want to be a present, peaceful father. You start looking, oftentimes defining what we want. We have to start with defining what we don't want. And that gives us the clarity to figure out what we do want. And then once you start identifying these things you want, that's where we can discover alignment. That's when you can start to define your values. That's when you can start to look at your habits, your routines, your thoughts, your beliefs, and at the core of it all, your identity and how you see yourself and who you believe that you are, so that you can start making these baby steps. Because it doesn't happen overnight. You know that. I know that. This is not something that you just like wave a magic wand. For many of us, we've invested years or decades into an identity that is not the real version of us. We just don't realize it. We don't even know who we are anymore.
Uh-huh.
And so, in starting to define and redefine this man, it's not this process of like trying to reach out there in the future and think, oh man, who do I want to be? No, it's actually a deconstructive, reconstructive process where you need to go back to when you were 5 years old. You need to go back to when you were 7. You need to go back to when you were a kid. There was certain things that lit you up. And if you start to do that, you can create actual alignment in your life, and life becomes in a healthy way very binary. You ask that, look at that. Look at that little
I keep a
stud right there. Come on.
little baby photo of myself so I never forget where I came from.
Come on, man. Always remember where you started and why you started. But this exercise, what it does, and to kind of answer your question, Ted, is that this helps us to create actual alignment because life becomes very simple. Now, the question is what I'm doing aligned with the man I said I would be? Yes or no? Is this choice aligned with the man I said I would be? Yes or no? Is how I'm treating my wife aligned with the man I said I would be? Yes or no? Is this financial decision aligned with the man I said I would be? Yes or no? And us guys, we like those binary things. We like the yes, no. We don't like the gray. I don't
Yeah.
know. No, just you get to decide. You get to commit. You get to become that man. And so then what I have guys do is I say, okay, now we have to take these things and we need to start implementing them into your routine. Morning routine, daily routine, evening routine. What are you reading? What are you consuming? Where are you investing your time? And most guys aren't investing their time, they're just spending. I spend time with my kids. I spend time at the bar. I spend time at work. Stop spending. Stop seeing your life as something to spend. It's not something to spend. Invest every moment and be expectant for a return on that investment. I don't spend time with my wife anymore. I never spend time with my wife. I invest time with my wife. I invest time with my kids. I invest my life into my businesses, into my clients. I invest into this podcast right now. I'm not spending time on a podcast with Ted. I'm investing. Why? Because I believe in Ted. I believe in this community. I believe that every man that's listening right now, you have a calling on your life. You may not know exactly what it is. It's because you haven't given yourself permission to define it. And I'll stop. I'm going on a tirade, Ted.
I love it.
Slow
I
me
was sitting
down.
here, I was like, my man. David, nothing short of phenomenal and fantastic, man. And I can't wait to take my pen, lick the tip, and let out Petty Teddy all over that list as I put everything that I'm unsatisfied with. Petty Teddy is a thing, but
Come on.
I also wrote down flip it
Mm-hmm.
because our mind will identify the negative faster than the positive, and we
Yeah.
can identify a whole bunch of things that we're not satisfied with. But that can give us the clarity
Yeah.
by process of elimination of where we are trying to go. Because
Yeah.
just like a destination can pull us and control us, the avoidance of something else can also push us
Yeah.
and control us. when we start rowing, using an analogy of a lake, this big body of water, we're on one side with this identity, this life that was prescribed to us. We people pleased and we followed the protocol all the way up until the shore where we realize we're on the wrong side.
Mm.
So we do the work of getting in the boat and we start rowing. But sometimes the gap between the shores, David, we're still closer to the shore that we're coming from, and we have so much farther to go from the new shore. And for some reason, that current is still pushing us where we used to be. And we're rowing against the current. Fatigue starts to settle in, and the gap between who we're trying to become and who we
Mhm.
were just seems to be this deep void.
You know why?
Why?
If iron sharpens iron, so does one man sharpen another. But if you're a man and you're alone or listening to this, then who sharpens you? What's going on, guys? Ted Payton here, host of the Modern Man Podcast, also founder of the Noble Knights Mastermind Group. And I'm just out here encouraging you to find your circle. Maybe you're on a personal growth journey and nobody around you understands the new mentality that you're possessing. That's okay. You can find an online community that will pour into you, will navigate your goals and navigate your obstacles, share their experiences, resources, and more. Join the Noble Knights Mastermind Group and try us out for free to tap into a community of men helping each other scale up and reach their goals.
Check out themodernmanpodcast.com.
Because most of us, I'm going to dismantle your analogy. I hope I'm not overstepping here. Okay.
No, hit me.
Because most of us were conditioned to see life that way. Is I'm here on the shore and I need to get in the boat and I need to work hard and paddle and do to get to the other shore. When the fact of the matter is what you need to do is you need to flip over the boat and you need to drown
Mm.
because you're living upside down. You're living in an ecosystem, a culture, a society, an environment with patterns and programs. And you're most of us not, and this is how we all are. And I was this way too, is I asked the question, what do I need to do to fix my marriage? What do I need to do to fix my health? What do I need to do to be a better dad? What do I need to do to make more money? What do I need to do? What do I need to do? What do I need to do? And it's paddle, 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 paddle harder. And life and circumstances and chaos just start bashing us in the face. And it's exhausting. And it's hard. And we forget that, no, what we actually do has nothing to do with an action. It has to do with who we are, which means that you have to die. That version of you has to be put to death. And I hope I'm not overstepping by making this a little spiritual for everybody listening right here. But the fact of the matter is, whether you're talking about faith or religion, otherwise, there is a very real death that has to occur where you have to put that man to death and say, he is no more. I am starting fresh. I am born again today. I am new today. The past doesn't exist anymore and the future's not here yet. So what use is guilt and shame and beating the crap out of myself? What use is anxiety and fear and worry? That's non-existent time. All I have is today. And if I can commit today to say, this is who I am, so this is what I do, regardless of how I feel, every single one of us, you commit to that on a daily basis and you will create within yourself what we all talk about as confidence. Where does confidence come from? Having a track record of undeniable proof. Every man listening here is confident in certain skills, proficiencies. You've done something for so long, you're confident at it. Maybe you're a woodworker, you're a plumber. Maybe you run a business, you're in marketing, you're in sales. You develop that confidence because you have a track record of undeniable proof because you've developed that skill set. But to develop internal confidence is very different. That comes down to one thing and one thing only, is do I keep my word to myself?
Mhm.
Do I keep my word to myself? Am I committed to doing the things that I said that I would do regardless of how I feel? Because if not, guess what happens? Just like in a relationship, me and you, Ted, if I tell you I'm going to do something and then I don't do it, you might give me grace and be like, ah, man, something happened the first time. But then I do it a second time and a third time and a fourth time. Eventually, you stop trusting me. And eventually you lose all respect for me. And that's where most men are right now, Ted. They have broken trust within themselves so often for so long that they don't respect themselves anymore. And that's where I got to. I hated the man in the mirror. I wanted to kill the man in the mirror. I hated him. But cultivating that trust and that respect only comes from I'm giving my word to myself and I'm going to keep my promises to myself. I'm not going to snooze. Don't snooze then. I'm going to read every day. Then read every day. I'm going to show my wife love and compassion. Then show her love and compassion. It's so simple and so freaking hard. So this is not about us just figuring out the right things to do. It's saying, okay, I need to define the man that I want to be and create alignment today and say, does this version of me, that version of me that I said that I would be, does he do this? Yes or no? Does he come home in a bad mood carrying all of his baggage and all the stuff that happened during the day and dish it out on the kids and the wife? Or do I come home and I set the tone? When dad gets home, he sets the tone. If we start to look at these things, what you need to do gets real simple and real crystal clear. And that's where you step into flow. You drown yourself in this process and you are reborn into a new man, and you give yourself permission to surrender and say, I'm not that man anymore. I'm not that man anymore, because you know who you really are? That picture you just held up, Ted, right?
Yeah.
Before all the baggage, before all the pain, before the betrayal, before the divorce, before the bankruptcy, before the job loss, before all the stuff that we've been through, that's who we are. And this is a rediscovery process so we can step into that and find the freedom, the peace, and the joy that all of us are craving.
What was the rebuild process for you like when you became the new man, the David we have on the podcast today? And you mentioned before we started recording the framework of the ardent man. Because for anyone listening who maybe they're driving, maybe they're listening and they stopped and they look in the mirror and they're identifying that, okay, who they see, they need to drown through this process of becoming the man that they are meant to become, the man they choose to become. How is that process for you in that turnaround?
So the first thing I'd recommend to every single guy listening here is, on this episode right now, in this moment, you pause the episode and you send Ted a text message. You DM him on Instagram. You say, Ted, I want more information on Noble Knights. I want to know, how do I get plugged in? How do I get around brotherhood? How do I get connected? That is the first thing you do right now. If there's anything in this message that is resonating with you, brother, I'm speaking to you directly. Pause right now and take action. You want to know what to do? Take action. You reach out to Ted, you get plugged in. That's exactly what I did, is I had to find other men that I believed were aligned with my values, that could inspire me and encourage me. Because we've all heard this before. You are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. You're the average. And so if you look around and you got a bunch of guys that are cheating on their wives and they're going and getting drunk every weekend and they're spending time, and money on sports betting or watching the football game or the basketball game, and they're not investing their lives into creating and contributing and building something of significance, then change your freaking circle, man. Those guys are not your friends. They're just the people you've associated with so long that you feel like they're friends because you're comfortable, but you're comfortable. And everyone says this, Ted, and I know you've heard it before too, is everyone says, get outside your comfort zone. So what happens when you're like nothing is comfortable? How are you supposed to get out of your comfort zone if nothing's comfortable? And so what I tell people is this: it's not about getting outside your comfort zone. It's about leaving your zone of familiarity. If you look at our neurochemistry and how we're built up, we have built around us an environment to the best of our abilities to control and manipulate our circumstances to create the most sense of stability, security, and safety. Because none of us want to be in fight or flight. None of us like living in that anxiety, that fear, that tension. And so what has to happen is you have to remove yourself from what your brain thinks is familiar, family, sometimes, right? And you have to find and create relationships with other men in particular. It's got to be men who inspire you, who encourage you, who, like Ted, who have the courage to look you in the face and be like, brother, that's not who you are. What are you doing, man? What are you doing? Bro, that's
Yeah.
not who you are.
Come
And
on,
you,
man.
you have guys who will hold you to a higher standard. That's the problem. Everyone's really great about goal setting, but they don't have standards. Like, oh, I want to make $1 million, or I want to get a six pack, or I want to, buy the house on the hill. Or I want to take this trip. That's fine. Have your goals. What are your standards? What are your daily non-negotiables? And do you have someone? Ardent stands for this: accountable. Do you have someone holding you accountable? Because if you're accountable to yourself, you're going to lose. Because we lie to ourselves. I lie to myself every day, Ted. I don't know about you, but I have to have
Yep.
guys who care enough about me to hold me accountable. R stands for responsible. Are you shirking responsibility, or are you taking responsibility for your actions? D stands for discipline. And a lot of people don't like the word discipline because they think it means punishment. No, a discipline is something that you commit yourself to regardless of how you feel, and you develop. Everybody's kind of jealous of Ted's triceps because he's freaking disciplined. E stands for empathy. Many of us are really good at being empathetic for other people, but how are you in being empathetic for yourself? You beat yourself up.
Uh-huh.
You hold those things against yourself that you would never hold against your best friend. You layer on the guilt and the shame and the condemnation and just constantly beat the crap out of yourself because of the mistakes that you made, that had someone you loved made those same mistakes, you would have forgiven in a moment. Can you have empathy for your ignorance of the choices that you made when you didn't know what you didn't know? N stands for nobility. Do you understand that you're a king? Now, you might be in training and might not be ready to take the throne yet, but that is your inheritance. But God's not going to entrust you the things he wants to entrust you with unless you prove yourself to yourself by walking as a king. How does a king carry himself? How does a king treat a good king? His domain, his dominion, your office, your house, your car. You listening right now, brother? Take a look around your car. How's your floorboards? You got freaking Tostitos down there? You got Gatorade bottles? If you're not ruling your kingdom, don't expect to be promoted, man. If you can't preside over your current area of influence, don't expect to be promoted. Don't expect that raise. Don't expect new opportunities, because you're not being a good steward and carrying yourself as the nobility that you are. T stands for truth. I speak truth. I live truth. I search for truth in everything. I live truth. That means I don't lie to people. And that means that sometimes what I say is very uncomfortable and they don't like it. But guess what? My model is Jesus, and he said a lot of stuff that's still unpopular 2,000 years later. It makes people uncomfortable. And he didn't have to go back and try and make excuses and apologize for people's misunderstanding. He just spoke the truth. He did it in love. But that's where the fierce side of empathy comes in: is, are we willing to create an environment where people feel seen, heard, understood, known, and loved, but simultaneously willing to speak the hard truth in love, regardless of the discomfort that may follow, regardless of someone potentially rejecting you, regardless of someone pushing you away, regardless of someone labeling you and judging you and misunderstanding you and misaligning your intentions? And so it's a long-winded way of saying, man, if you're listening right now, your first step, if you want to make the change, is you pull out your phone right this second, you pull over and you send Ted a text message on Instagram and say, brother, plug me in. Plug me in. I want to grow. I want to learn. I want to expand. I want to get better. I'm done being this man. He needs to be put to death. I need to drown him so I can be born again. I can be resurrected unto the life, and I can become the man that I know that I can be, but I need help. Have the courage, brother, to ask for help, because that's just your ego that says, I should figure this out on my own. Yeah, how's that working out for you, dude? Because I did it for about 15 freaking years and I almost ended up putting a bullet in my head because my ego was in the way, because I was supposed to be strong enough. I was supposed to be hard enough. I was supposed to have the ability to figure it out on my own, because that's what a man's supposed to do. And then I figured out that was a load of BS. That a real man has the humility and courage to ask for help. So there
Amen to
you
that.
go. That's the next step.
Yeah. And that number is 864-477-2260. That's straight line. If you guys need something, you want to plug in, that's the number. Man, you just modeled what a lot of men hope to be. for themselves. For anyone who feels hesitation in pulling up that mantle, and you mentioned sales professional, I'm sure you know how to deal with objections or whatnot. And I found through building this, ironically, the biggest objection I find is the ego. It's the men who say, "Man, I've been looking for this. I need this. This is awesome." And then when it comes time to show up, crickets. Something came up. Um, so we get that gung ho feeling, but when it's time to do it,
Mhm.
analysis paralysis. We're at the edge of the diving board, just looking down and never going. Last question, as we only have a few more minutes, or second to last question, as we only have a few more minutes here in the show. Um, how do how do men get over that initial fear? How do men stop standing on the edge of the diving board and actually jump in, bro?
You have to do something that you've never done before. It requires a tremendous step of faith. So I'm going to use an example here. The reason that I charge what I charge an astronomical amount of money for people to work with me. Like most people would think it's absurd. It doesn't make sense for most people. And I'm okay with that because I'm only looking for the people that are not looking to me as their savior, are not looking to me to fix their problems, but are so willing to bet on themselves that say, no matter what it costs, I'm going to make a return on this investment because I'm going to commit myself to the process. I'm going to learn. I'm going to grow. I'm going to do whatever it takes to make sure that I create the transformation and change. And so what I tell people is like, this is not you're just buying something. This is an investment, body, soul, and spirit. And it's going to be probably the most significant and uncomfortable thing you've ever done in your entire life. So what I tell people is this, a great example of it is, what did Jesus require of his disciples? They had to sell everything and quit their jobs, dude.
Yeah.
You're talking about like their entire livelihood. Not just, it wasn't like, hey, Jesus, can we follow you? And he's like, yeah, pay me money. Like, no, it was more than that. That's what, like, we think it was more than that. He said, no, you're not paying me anything, but you're going to give me your life
Yeah.
and you have to leave. And so what I tell guys who are on the fence is like, brother, if you're not ready to make one of the most uncomfortable, significant investments you've ever made in your life, you're just not ready. And that's okay. That's okay. I'm not here to judge you. Your journey is your own, but you're not ready. And so for the guys that are on the fence, like, brother, you need to be honest with yourself because that's what matters. Be honest with yourself and say, I'm not ready, Ted, or go all in. Stop living in the in-between. It's like, I feel like it. I don't feel like it. Just do it. Freaking Nike. Come on. Just do it and believe in yourself for once in your life. Because I guarantee you, with Ted's heart and who he is and the leadership he has, his background, his experience, the men in his circle, the men, like I'm in his circle now, whether you like it or not, Ted, I'm along for the ride. Okay.
Come
So
on, dog.
what has to happen though is that you have to be willing to say, I believe in myself and I believe in these other men that will help me, to walk alongside me, to champion me, to encourage me, to remind me of who I am. Because guess what, guys? I forget who I am a lot. And I get in my own head and I still have anxiety from time to time and I still have struggles and I still miss the mark. This is not, I'm not arrived. I don't want anyone to misunderstand. And I appreciate your kind words, Ted. Like, my hope is that if there's anything that anyone takes away from this is, guys, this is a journey and we were never meant to do it alone. So if you're doing it alone, stop it. You're hurting yourself. You're hurting your wife. You're hurting your kids because your stupid ego's in the way. And maybe it's not Ted. Maybe it's not me. Maybe it's some other guy that's out there, a pastor at your church, a friend that you have. Just get plugged in, get accountable, start taking responsibility, discipline your body, walk with empathy, carry yourself as a noble king, and start speaking the truth to yourself and everyone around you, and your life will change.
Yeah. David, I want folks to not just follow you, reach out to you if they're ready to make that uncomfortable investment, if they're ready to make that leap forward. How can folks connect, follow, and learn more?
Man, the easiest way is, at the risk of sounding pretentious, just Google me. Like
Yo.
you can find me, and I mean, I hang out on Instagram a lot. If you send me a DM and you reference Ted, I promise I won't ignore it. I've got a team too that will filter stuff, but if you reference the podcast, I will actually personally respond to you. So you can email me. There's a lot of different ways, but Yeah, if you're in Ted's circle, you can be my friend too. I'll be your friend if you'll let me.
I'll have a couple links in the show notes. As we wrap up really quick, one last question as we have about 1 minute to get to that before I close is what's something that you've seen or something that's happened that shapes the way you view the world as a man?
What's something that I've seen or that's happened that's changed the way I see the world? I had a vision one time, Ted. I get lots of visions. I don't know why. I don't question them anymore. But I saw my daughter, and at the time, I have 4 kids. So my daughter is 7, and I have a 5-year-old, a 3-year-old, and a 3-month-old. And this was probably around the time when my daughter was 4, and I saw her come up to me in the vision. I was kind of in third person, and she looked up and she said, "Daddy, Daddy, what do you want to do today?" And I looked down at her, and in the vision, I could see all this happening. I looked down at her. I said, "Sweetheart, what do you want to do today?" And she said, "Daddy, I just whatever you want to do. I just want to do whatever it is that you want to do." And I looked at her like, "Well, sweetheart, Daddy wants to do whatever you want to do. Like, what do you want to do?" And she looked at me and she said, "Daddy, I'm not allowed to do that. I'm not allowed to tell you what I want to do." And I was like, "Sweetheart, what are you talking about? What like all that I want to do is be with you. What do you want to do?" And she kind of changed in that moment. She said, "Father, not my will, but your will be done." And that broke me, Ted, because my entire life I had desperately prayed and said, "God, what do you want me to do?" And all along, all he was doing was looking at me saying, "Kiddo, what do you want to do? I just want to be with you. I
Yeah.
just want to be with you." And that changed my life, Ted, because I realized that his heart is to give us the desires of our heart, but we have to live in intimacy and relationship with the Father. If you want to know what your calling is, it's to be that man today. That's it. And walk with him and recognize you have permission to go after and pursue those things. He just wants to be with you. That's it. There you go. That changed my life, man.
Renowned high performance coach, speaker, and founder of Fierce Empathy Solutions, David Waldy. Thank you so much for being on the show, brother. This is
It was an
fantastic.
honor. Thank you, Ted. Appreciate you, brother.
No, thank you. And I know I need to get you out of here in about 60 seconds. I'm going to wrap up really quick because I know a lot of folks are driving or whatnot while listening. Thank you. Way too many notes to go through all of them, but are you an ardent man? Are you embodying everything it means to be accountable and also making sure that you are going through my notes?
Responsible.
You're responsible, disciplined, you're empathetic, you're noble, and you're telling and living in truth. Don't row, drown, drown. Let the old you die so the new you can live. Commit to who you want to become and then ask yourself, is this in alignment with the man I want to be? Yes or no? Use that as your guide. Let that be your North Star. And if you need help, you have David, you have my number if you're ready to get serious. Ironically, we are called The Noble Knight,
Come on.
and we are here walking this walk together because it's not meant to go alone. 864-477-2260. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. Thank you so much. We appreciate you guys. Thank you to David. And as we always say at the end, everybody wants the sunshine, but they don't want the rain. But you can't get the pleasure without first the pain. Let's grow.